Hello witches! I'm back. This is a third video in a series of 4. These are my top 5s, and I just realized that I didn't say my name in my last 2 videos, but Lorelei here. So this video is my top 5 oddities. This is a video response to She Who Walks Between Worlds, and in her video she actually used the term oddities, which is why I'm using it, and she talks about these are things that like you might use in spell work, but they don't really fit nicely in like the herb category or the crystal category or like any of the other categories, so they're kind of like miscellaneous. They're oddities. So let's get started. My first one is seawater or ocean water. So this is my bottle of ocean water. I actually do have some shells and a piece of found sponge in there and some sand bits. So the last time that we went to the beach, I just brought some back with me. I drank some bottled water and brought some back in a bottle with me and then put it in this. So that's my ocean water. Seawater is great for cleansing, but it's also like especially great for healing. So this can be healing of a lot of different types, but it's specifically great for healing like stuff in your head. Like I remember meeting a surfer guy that his complexion was great. And I asked him one time, I was like, did you not struggle with, acne growing up? And he grew up like surfing. He grew up living, on the coast. And he was like, no, I actually think that the seawater kept me from getting acne. I was like, oh, weird, and and I had another friend who actually struggled with acne a lot throughout the year, and we lived inland, but during the summers, his family would go to a coastal area, and he would surf a lot during the summers, and he said during the summers, his acne would actually clear up a lot, and then during the school year, his acne would come back, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. But the seawater would actually, the salt and everything in the seawater would clear it up. There's also a lot about seawater that can help you with, like if you deal with allergies and stuffiness and stuff like that can help. It can help clear out your sinuses and everything. But beyond that, just like healing in general, if I'm trying to do something healing wise or cleansing wise, I'm going to use that seawater. My next one is actually another type of water. So this is my storm water. I was actually kind of, I'm gonna say excited, but also terrified for Hurricane Dorian. I have decided that I am blessed that Hurricane Dorian did not hit us based on what happened in the Bahamas. Oh my God. I feel for the people in the Bahamas that dealt with that tragedy. Oh my God, that devastation. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's ridiculous. I know that's kind of a tangent, but what I was getting at is I was trying to figure out if Hurricane Dorian did hit us, like how was I going to capture some of that water, some of that storm water, because holy shit, that would have been some powerful stuff. This is just like thunderstorm water, which is funny because I'm like, it's just, but thunderstorm water is really powerful too. I've heard people call it element water before because someone explained like it's got all the elements. It's got little like earth particles, like dust and stuff particles in there, but it's also got obviously water, wind. You get, thunderstorms have wind with them, and then lightning. is the fire element in a thunderstorm. So storm water, element water. And I just use this kind of to add a punch or add more power to a spell, especially if it calls for water to begin with. And I used this when creating my Cascarilla chalk, which I will actually talk about in just a second, but I'm not there yet. I'll get there. So my next one is actually a Limerock Dust. I don't have a whole lot of it because what I have been doing, Limerock tends to be pretty hard. So I have been actually taking, I actually asked my husband to go to like Lowe's or Home Depot or something and get me a chisel. And he got me a couple of different sizes of chisel. And I have been slowly chipping away at some of these rocks. Now Limerock shows up all over where I live. For those of you who don't know, I live in Florida. I live in the northern half of Florida. And so we have Limerock roads. They actually, like, if you live down a dirt road, when they grade the road, they use Limerock to grade the road. So Limerock's easy to find. But it also helps that my parents actually live on land that at one point was used to mine Limerock, but it wasn't used extensively. Like, I think it wasn't like very good. Like, there's still some Limerock outcroppings, but it's not, there's another spot in the same area that's used more and is still used as a Limerock mining area. So anyway, ours is kind of left alone and it's just ours. But so I just picked up a few smaller rocks that I could chunk in my car, brought them home and started chiseling away at them, and this is what I've gotten. I have not put any of this into my mortar and pestle yet, and I plan to eventually, because there are some larger chunks. I don't know if you can see that. There are some larger chunks in there, but there is actually a lot in there that's literally just powder, and it's Limerock powder. Anyway, okay, so what's Limerock good for? Limerock Dust, it grounds and centers, which is awesome. I need a lot of that. And if you pay attention, you'll notice that a lot of my stuff is grounding, centering, purifying, like cleansing, all that stuff. It also, the one thing that I really like Limerock Dust for, it's kind of funny, is it's supposed to remind us of our innocence, which is interesting to me because it really does remind me of my innocence. And I have a story to go along with it. When my brother and I were little, we would take Limerock rocks that we found and we would pretend that we were paleontologists. And we would take like an old outdoor paintbrush that my dad had lying around, and we would, like, you know, brush away, and we would take like an old, we didn't have, my dad didn't actually go out and buy us a chisel or anything. So we would take like an old flathead screwdriver that was lying around or something. My dad had all sorts of tools just lying around. So we would just take something and we would sit there and like chisel away at the rock and like, and brush away at it and pretend we were paleontologists. We were looking for dinosaur bones, right? And I'm pretty sure we sat at an overturned cattle, one of those, what are they? I don't even know what they are. It's like a cattle tub thing that you put water in, like a cattle trough, I guess. So one of those overturned cattle troughs with Limerock rocks on top of it, chiseling away with flathead screwdrivers and brushing away with paintbrushes, looking for imaginary dinosaurs for hours and hours. God, my parents were lucky. You know, and we were, our imaginations were amazing. But yeah, so Limerock actually does remind me of my innocence, because it reminds me of a time when I my imagination ran wild, and I was having innocent fun. It was amazing. I'm gonna cry and I don't know why. Anyway, fourth oddity is black volcanic rock salt. Now, I've watched a lot of videos lately about black salt. This is my black volcanic rock salt. This came this way. I actually bought this. It's volcanic rock. There's volcanic rock in it. So like, I don't know if you can see that. But there's also rock salt in here. So it's basically, I mean, it's used for protection. I mean, and chasing away adversity and stuff. I've got a lot of it. It was really cheap when I bought it. So, but I'm planning to make my own black salt because I've seen a lot of videos about it. I'm actually like collecting my spell remains and my ashes and my incense ashes and stuff like that so that I can make my own like witch's black salt. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, and honestly, like, this stuff works just as well, and I already have it. So, I mean, like, I love making my own ingredients and making my own tools and things, so I'm excited to make my own witch's black salt, but this stuff works great too, so not really too worried about it. So, let's see. Ooh, my last, but definitely not least, this is one of my favorite oddities, at least lately. I'm sorry, I've been coughing a lot, and I don't know why. But this, and I actually don't have a lot of it because I just used a bunch of it to make, I'll show you. But this is Cascarilla. So this is actually, so if, for those of you who don't know, Cascarilla is basically just ground up dried eggshells. But I've actually mixed it with cornstarch, just a little bit. So it's probably like, well, this may be more. This may be more like 1-to-1 cornstarch and eggshells. But usually, because I had a failed chalk experiment, but usually I would do like 1 part cornstarch to 3 parts Cascarilla or something like that. It's basically just to thicken it a little bit, but yeah. So that's my Cascarilla loose. And then I recently made, you'll see this one is used. I've started to use it, but I made chalk, Cascarilla infused chalk. Yeah. I was trying to figure out what kind of mold I wanted to put them in because everywhere I looked, I saw use an old toilet paper roll and, you know, line it with wax paper. And I was like, okay, but that's just gonna make a big old round, like, that's not cool. I mean, I guess I could have, but I also wasn't sure I wanted to make that much chalk. So I actually found at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something, I found like a plastic mold, and it was for soap. Actually, it was a soap mold that was a crystal soap mold. And I was like, well, let's use that, you know? And you know, I always saw, I was like, oh, I'll just line it with wax paper. And then I forgot to line it with wax paper. And I was like, oh crap, I'm probably gonna have to like cut the plastic off of these things. And well, the plastic mold was only $2.99, so whatever, it'll be fine. No, they popped right out, it was fine. So I can actually reuse the mold, which is gonna be great. So when I first made these, I actually made them the way that I guess Cascarilla chalk is traditionally made. So if you buy it in like those little, like the little ketchup cups that you can like get at like wherever, fast food restaurants, you know, if you buy them like in a metaphysical store or on like Etsy or whatever, a lot of times the Cascarilla chalk comes in those. Well, to me, if I'm going to use the chalk for drawing, which was my plan in the first place, that's not really, like, it's not usable that way for me. At least, like, I was having a hard time wrapping my head around that anyway. So I was like, okay. And I was looking up, like, how you make that. So apparently, the way that they make that traditionally is you mix the Cascarilla with flour and or cornstarch and water, and you pack it in there and you let it dry. Okay, so I did that. And I did add like an essential oil or two and, you know, stuff like that. And it dried, and it, you know, it held together until I tried to use it to draw on something, and it immediately broke, and it didn't draw very well. And I was like, this is bullshit. And so I was like, well, if I'm gonna make chalk, I mean, if it's gonna be chalk, and if I put Cascarilla in it, it'll still do the same thing. I'm just gonna make chalk. So I just looked up how to make homemade chalk and just added Cascarilla to it, which basically was plaster of Paris and water. And if you want to make colored chalk, you add acrylic paint. And I was like, I don't need it to be colored. And if I wanted it to be colored, I'd probably use food coloring and not acrylic paint. I really just want it for my purposes of like protection, sigil drawing, that kind of thing. So I was like, I just want to make Cascarilla chalk that I can use to actually draw sigils and symbols and stuff. So I used plaster of Paris, used my storm water, and I used a Cascarilla, and I got chalk. And I actually did use I used eucalyptus essential oil and sweet orange essential oil, some other stuff, I think lavender. It doesn't smell as strong as it did before, but when it first came out of the mold, oh, it smelled amazing. It smelled like heaven. So yeah, those are my top 5 oddities. This, I believe, is my longest video yet. Hopefully I can edit that down for you guys. But stay tuned. I have one more video because, as you can see, I like crystals. And my next video is my top 5 crystals. So we'll see you next time.